again, conversations of the heart, black trauma with my brother Lenny, and a lot of people didn't get a chance to see it, so we're gonna do it one more time, have some dialogue and have some fun with it. So let me just tap in my brother right here and go from there. My brother,
What's going on, T?
back one more time. I
Yeah,
love it.
let's go.
I love it though.
Let's go.
It kind of worked out. A lot of people just, you know, they hit me as you saw and said, "Hey, listen, they didn't get a chance to see it yesterday,
Right.
so we're gonna go ahead and give it to them one more time." So for those who don't know, my brother Lenny is an educator. He is a mentor, a father figure to many. He is a leader of men. He's coached men to boys, and he is somebody that I look to for inspiration. He's a brother to me. It's like I always say, he is this generation's Michael Eric Best. And I really mean that. And you know, let's get to it, man. Thank you for doing this again with me. So I appreciate you, man.
Of
Appreciate you,
course.
brother.
You already know.
So you did a video, and it hit me. I think it was a few weeks ago. You did your first video on just black trauma, and it was raw. You were in the Minnesota Vikings jersey. I see what you did there. And it it was raw, and I was like, wow, super super impressed. I felt it from an emotional standpoint, and then you followed up with another video. It was pretty much says from black trauma, creates leaders, right? And then that was very thought provoking. That was very it was awesome, and it hit home with me too. And I learned a whole lot. But like you always said, you take your classroom everywhere you go. So again, I thank you for bringing the classroom here, because I think that there will be a lot of people that will learn, that will get involved with the dialogue, and that's what this is about: to educate, to strategize, to vent, to just have conversation and dialogue. So again, thank you, brother, for taking the time to do this.
Of course.
Appreciate you.
Always my pleasure. I appreciate you sharing your platform with me. First,
Yes, sir.
I never get tired of hearing a comparison to Michael Eric Dyson.
Yep.
Anytime I hear his name mentioned in the same sentence as mine, it's always
Hmm.
very humbling because that is one of my educational heroes or guides, so to speak, as far
Hmm.
as what I want to accomplish and the kind of reputation I want to have. So thank
Hmm.
you for that.
Hmm.
Second, I'm glad you mentioned the Minnesota Vikings gear that I was wearing because I
Yeah.
didn't mention it in the video.
Nope.
I was hoping people would catch it.
I got it. I got
I'm
it.
glad that you picked that up because I realized after I was like, I didn't say it. They'll figure it out. And
Yep.
so
I definitely did.
I'm glad that you picked that up, man. And
Cause I
I'm
already know
also
your
very
team.
appreciative.
Cause I already know your team. So I was just like, I know he didn't switch teams. So
Absolutely.
I already know.
That's right.
Uh,
That's right. That's right. Very, very
so
intentional, man.
yeah, definitely. And which you always are. So I guess my first question to you would be, number one, well, why did you decide, that was the moment to kind of create the videos that you did? And also, what is your definition of black trauma?
Good questions. The first of the two questions was why did I do that? It started because I realized how many conversations that I was having with a lot of different people, former students that have become my friends, my current friends who
Right,
were just kind of curious about what my perspective was on certain things or whatever the case
right.
was. But I
Mm-hmm.
realized that a majority of the calls, texts, DMs that I was getting was from
Mm-hmm.
people who looked to me kind of like as that mentor educator, where they
Mm-hmm.
can come to me with vulnerability and ask
Mm-hmm.
questions and get honest feedback. And I
Right.
appreciated the fact that they felt comfortable enough with me to do that. But I also
Mm-hmm.
recognized that I was rehashing the same conversation over and over again. And for
Mm-hmm.
those particular or former students, those friends of mine, it was new for them. But for me, it was
Mm-hmm.
repetitive. So I
Right.
realized, like, all right, there might be a need for me to use my platform differently, to just kind
Right.
of literally think out loud. I think that's how I described my first video, as just me
Yes.
talking to the camera. I'm by myself. I'm
Yep.
just talking
Mm-hmm.
with no audience. The good news is that there's no interruption, so people are kind
Mm-hmm.
of forced to just listen. So
Right.
now, anyone who has a question from me, hope that
Mm-hmm.
in a true educator fashion, I try and
Mm-hmm.
answer your question before you ask it.
Yes.
And I throw it out there, and now you're listening. It's like, oh, all right.
Mm-hmm.
So now our conversation afterwards is going to be a little more, a little deeper. It's not going to be surface
Right.
level stuff. Lenny, what do you
Right.
think? You're going to know
Mm-hmm.
what I think already. Now your question is going to
Mm-hmm.
be a little more in depth and not really ask me how I think, but how you can do better to
Mm-hmm.
ask me more poignant questions, or how you can help me instead of me helping
Right.
you.
Right.
Which leads to the second part of that question, as far as
Mm-hmm.
what Black trauma is.
Mm-hmm.
And for me, I look at it through the lens of being an educator and
Mm-hmm.
having people feel comfortable again coming to me, but not even realizing what I'm really going through, what I'm experiencing, without having to explain that to them. They
Right.
feel comfortable in talking to me, but they don't understand that I'm still struggling, just like
Mm-hmm.
a lot of other people. But because I am who
Mm-hmm.
I am to them, they don't make that connection. So when I
Right.
talk about trauma, I'm talking about it from my perspective, not as a counselor, not as a psychologist, but as just Lenny, the educator,
Right.
and my
Mm-hmm.
experience being a Black man and being a Black educator, and
Right.
understanding that you and I have things that we've gone through for our lives, man, that
Yeah.
we don't need to be psychologists to explain and understand that it's been hurtful for us to have to do with those things. So
Exactly.
when I talked about trauma, that's kind of where it was coming from, and I talked about it through that lens specifically.
Gotcha. And for those of you who haven't gotten a chance to watch his videos in full, please head over to his page, um, at Lamberton, and really go check out the videos that he put out. They're very thought provoking, and I think that, and I know that you'll get a lot from them. And so, with both of those videos, I kind of had to take some, some notes. Since you like to educate, I like to take notes. And and one of the things that you said, it said, "Do not allow faith to stop us from doing what we need to do." And then and then after that, you followed up with the story of the shepherd. So for those of them people who don't know, just please, take us through that.
Yeah. So being somebody who is, on his own spiritual journey, and has spent a
Hmm.
lot of time growing up in the church,
Yep.
going to Catholic school, all those things, I have an understanding of the Bible, and I have an
Yes.
appreciation for the Bible.
Right.
But I also recognize that there are people who are using the Bible or their faith as an excuse for not taking more action in what's
Yes.
going on right now in society.
Mm. Yes.
It's like saying, if you're standing with those that are saying Black Lives Matter, you're standing against others who are saying otherwise, or Jesus wouldn't do this, or
Hmm.
God wouldn't want us to do this. And that's inaccurate. Because
Right.
when you look at the Bible and you look at the leaders in the Bible, they reached out to the people who were marginalized, people who were poor, the people who needed the most support and the most help.
Right.
Those are the ones that got it.
Hmm.
Jesus was asking people, look at his team. His
Hmm.
disciples weren't always the most righteous of men. There are
Hmm.
people that the general public can relate to, and he wanted to show that they could do the work from where they came from. And I use
Hmm.
that story about the shepherd. He has a flock of 100 sheep. If he loses one, well, he still has 99.
Right.
But the shepherd didn't want to lose that one. That one was important to
Correct.
him. So he
Right.
went to go find that one. He left the 99 because they were
Hmm.
good. They were
Right.
safe. But
Right.
he went after the one because the one was in peril. He wanted
Hmm.
to find that one, bring it back home, and celebrate with his friends and say, look, I found my lost sheep.
Hmm.
Rejoice with me.
Right.
Right now, Black people are that one sheep. We need
Hmm.
those shepherds to come back and get us and bring us back to the flock, so we have that safety. So you can't
Hmm.
say, the Bible doesn't say. Yes, it does. It's
It
okay,
does.
human
It
issue, not a
does.
political one.
Right.
So that's kind of where I didn't want to attack people who
No.
because of their faith, but you got
Hmm.
to call some things out sometimes, and I'm calling it out from a faith perspective.
Yeah, and you're 200% correct. There are people who are using scripture to not want to have the tough conversations. There are people who are using Chicago as not wanting to have these conversations. There are people who's using Martin Luther King as a way of not having these conversations. And listen, and that's why it's so important that you always say that we have to educate ourselves because listen, for for better or for worse, when I was younger, I was home Bible school by my mother. I went to church, and then she also said, "Hey, listen, you're gonna get this work, and on the weekends you're gonna do Bible study." And she made me take tests on Scantron, Lenny. So I go to school Monday through Friday, take tests on Scantron, and then this woman would make me take tests from the Bible on Scantron. But looking through all that now, I'm like, I'm glad she did because now people can't use these things against me because guess what? Even Jesus flipped the
Right.
tables. Jesus got angry too,
Yeah.
right? So
Yeah.
it's just you can't just want us to be peaceful now because it is convenient for you. You know what I'm saying? Like that's just not how
Absolutely.
it works. But I digress. So speaking of a men of faith, you always speak about Martin versus Malcolm. You know what I'm saying? So when you talk about Malcolm versus Martin, that's a big hot topic, right? And
Hmm.
people are posting so much of Martin Luther King right now. I've never even. It's amazing how much Martin Luther King I've seen in the last 2 months. And before all that, there was none of that. You know what I'm saying? So speak to me about the Malcolm versus Martin.
Surely, surely, and I agree with you. I've been seeing the same amount of MLK just being posted and crammed down our throats, just like MLK,
Mm-hmm.
MLK, 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 and
Mm-hmm.
it just seems like it's convenient, isn't it? Like now we're
Mm-hmm.
hearing so much about MLK, but
Yep.
at the time, MLK wasn't revered in the same way that he is now.
Right.
I've always said that MLK was more revered in death than
Mm-hmm.
he was in life. It's
Right.
easy to praise the man after he's gone because he can't do all the things that he was trying to do when he was alive. He's gone now,
Exactly.
so he's not a threat to you anymore. So now you can use his words
Exactly.
when convenient. You know, they're gonna talk
Mm-hmm.
about the peaceful protest, but they're not gonna talk about you know him getting arrested a number of times. They're not gonna talk about
Exactly.
how he actually agreed with Malcolm X on some things. They're not gonna talk
Mm-hmm.
about that because it kind of defeats their narrative they're trying to create for us.
Right.
So when I talked about Malcolm versus Martin, that versus was very intentional too. Because
Mm-hmm.
growing up, it seemed like it had to be one or the other. It couldn't be
Mm-hmm.
both.
Right.
And we growing up as black people missed out on so much
Mm-hmm.
because we were always looking at MLK as the gold standard, and Malcolm X was the radical. He wasn't the
Right.
revolutionary. He was the radical. He was
Radical.
the anti MLK.
Right.
Meanwhile, they're both men of faith.
Mm-hmm.
They both were God fearing men. They both
Mm-hmm.
wanted the same thing ideally. Now their methods of going about it were different. And
Mm-hmm.
yes, Malcolm was a little extreme early on, but he changed his position
Mm-hmm.
before he died.
Yes.
We know that, but we know that now. We didn't learn that
Mm-hmm.
in school.
Oh no.
We learned that on our own. Unless you went to an HBCU, you
Mm-hmm.
didn't get that kind of information. I know I didn't.
I did not.
So I spent a lot of time in school, man, and I did not get that kind of information from school.
Mm-hmm.
And
Right.
it was disappointing that as an educator, I'm committing
Mm-hmm.
my life to this field, and
Mm-hmm.
I sort of was robbed of this information because it was hidden from me, and I had to get it on my
Yep.
own later.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yep.
those were those were things that I recognized that continue to happen, which is
Mm-hmm.
why I love talking about Malcolm so much more now.
Mm-hmm.
I fell in love with the man just because of the way he spoke and what he spoke about. He wanted
Right.
black people to love themselves, man.
Mm-hmm.
Martin did, so did Malcolm.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Malcolm was just more about being pro-black,